Hi again, guys. This is Miss Brooks with Social Studies video number 6. With Social Studies, we've been a little behind as far as work. But honestly, I just want you guys to take any downtime that you have with Social Studies to fully grasp the concept and ask me any questions you have. Just email me. Because currently my phone is like blowing up every 10 seconds with other things. So I'm more likely to answer your email than a dojo. Parents can still dojo me. That's fine. I'm just saying, students, if you have questions, go email me. I'm more likely to answer it that way. So the next 2-3 days, we are going to be talking about getting into the mummification process and the house of life and how important that was in ancient Egyptian culture. I do want to bring you some fun facts, though. Sometimes I think it helps to understand and just get a few fun facts that you're just like, what? That actually happened? I like to learn fun things that relate to a subject. I like to be surprised, I guess. My fun facts today come from Ramses II. So if you guys already know, Ramses II was by far my favorite pharaoh, and he was known as a lot of historians say he was the best pharaoh. King Tut obviously is the most noticeable one or the most popular one, solely based on the fact of his age and his skill. Nefertiti, Hatshepsut, that's first female pharaohs, disguising themselves as men. That sounds a lot like Mulan, I know, but they actually did that. So this comes from Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great. So Ramses II was pharaoh for 60 years. Now, this is ancient Egyptian time. A lot of people didn't even survive up until their 40s, like 30s or 40s, because obviously there was no real medicine. There's no technology. We don't have things like we do now. They live in the desert, so you wouldn't expect them to live very long. Ramses II was pharaoh for 60 years, and he lived up to be the age of 90. So he started around when he was 30. He died when he was 90. That's insane. So you can see how ancient Egyptians back then were like, oh, he's definitely related to the gods in some way because he's survived for so long. It was said that he was a dad to upwards of 100 children. 100 children. I cannot believe that. Now it says upward to, so around, this is a guesstimate, but with DNA that they've had and other mummies that they have found, they're finding a correlation there. So again, this is an educational guess as to what really happened, but still, that many kids is insane. Well, when you've lived up until you're 90, who knows? So 2 more fun facts about Ramses II, and then we'll get into today's stuff, actual stuff. Ramses II, in his sarcophagi in his tomb, it was raided. And his body was taken, but they eventually found it again. So that was good, good vibes and good luck was how they found that body. Because that was really, really important and worth a lot. This is the funniest one, this is the funniest fact, the last one for Ramses II. During the flight to Paris in the museum to rest his body, France actually issued him a passport, even though he's a mummy and he's been dead for thousands of years, he got a passport. And on his passport, his occupation or his job says king, and in parentheses, deceased. That's hilarious to me. I thought that was awesome. So that's just some fun facts for today. Tomorrow, instead of fun facts, I might just do a today in history. If you guys want to continue the day in history, even on here, please let me know, because some of you guys really, really liked the today's in history. Obviously April 1st. I don't want to say something and you guys be like, oh no, she's just April Fool's. No, we're still continuing on our regular lessons. So really, we're going to get into the basics on why the Egyptians mummified their people, what was mummification, what the word embalming means, and then famous mummies, obviously. You guys should know a lot of them. However, tomorrow's video, that's when we're getting getting into the actual process. Now, I will say this, and I'm going to say this in advance. The mummification process is not pretty. It is insane. It's not... If you're very sensitive to the thought of certain, like, things like gore, as far as, but like body parts, dismemberment, just all of those sensitive things. If you're sensitive to that, that's what the next video is going to be about, because honestly, I'm not really going to be like, oh, they just did this. If I'm telling you about the actual process and it's required for you to know it, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to make sure that you understand fully what happened. I'm not going to say, well, they just gave the body kind of nice little hugs with the wrappings that they did. No, I'm going to tell you like it is. Because this was the first ever embalming mummification process that we have ever seen, and the fact that those bodies are extremely preserved to the point where we can still tell their bodies and they still have some of their muscle intact over thousands of years, people, that says and speaks volumes. That is insane. So whatever I'm going to tell you about the mummification process, like in tomorrow's video, I'm going to go through each and every step with you guys on how to mummify a body. Now, I'm not telling you to go and mummify your own body. You will get arrested. It's not good. But I'm just going to tell you guys about the process that they used and why some of it was good and why some of it was bad. Because honestly, guys, there's no perfect method. Unless we've suddenly found out how to keep a body looking like if I were to pass away or something. Mummification is not perfect. I'm not going to look exactly like this millions of years down the road. It's just not going to happen. But I don't want to go easy on details. Some of them talk about what they did with certain organs of the body and why they left some in, where they left some of the bodies, what they did to the body, as far as the mummification process. If you're sensitive, that's what the next video is going to be about. If you just want to skip that video and go straight into the, mummification sheet, this is tomorrow's. So you should know what to do with this one. But today we're doing the questions and answers portion, which should look like this. Now, you saw this one very similar to, you saw something very similar to this, like the very first week of NTI. but it was about the Rosetta Stone. This is about the mummification process, so make sure you guys are not getting confused. So let's just go through these. These videos are going to be a little shorter. Tomorrow's video probably won't be any shorter. That one, if anything, is going to be longer because I'm actually going through and teaching you about the process and how that actually worked on making the bodies very preserved, how they preserve the bodies and why each step was extremely important to them. Again, the mummification, the god of mummification process, the embalming process, was Anubis, and he would, it was said that in that temple and in that scenery, he would oversee everything and make sure it was perfect. Definitely Anubis is one of the most popular Egyptian gods. What's mummification? So it's a process like embalming that preserve. It's a process. You could call it mummification or embalming. Either way, it works. But really, it's to preserve the body. Preserving means to keep it lasting as long as it can. If you think about cans that you get from the grocery store, they last a long time. They're trying to preserve that long enough so it's still edible even years down the road. So mummification, it has a lot of processes, but ultimately what you need to know is the mummification process, preserving the body, getting it ready for the afterlife. So the body was extremely important because, as we've said multiple times, the afterlife. So say there's an Egyptian, say there's Pharaoh. Their belief, again, this is myth. We know this isn't really true, but this is what they believed in myths. So there would be a Egyptian pharaoh or a noble, because those were the only people that could be mummified. Those people had passed away. The mummification process, and then all of that in the tomb, wherever they were placed, would transfer over to the afterlife where they can live their next life. The body, of course, you need a body to walk around. So their thought was preserve the body as much as you can so it goes with them to the afterlife in perfect form, really. Now, we'll get into specifics about different organs later, more so tomorrow, just because I want you to realize they viewed some organs as not essential and some that were essential. Surprisingly, the brain was considered not essential and one of the first things that they actually take out of a body. Sorry. But they would leave the heart in the body. And I'll go through that tomorrow too. So why did the Egyptians mummify their bodies? So again, we just discussed the body was an important part of the afterlife and needed to be preserved. And then it was believed that the body is needed in order for the soul, Ba, to unite with the person, Ka, in the afterlife. So, again, more Egyptian words that might be a little confusing. So, if you remember, I'll go through more of the 24 kingdoms, the journey of Ra. There's Baku in the east and Manu in the west, with the mountains. They have little words like that, just small 2-letter words usually meant bigger picture things. So the soul, what they referred to as the soul, was called a Ba. We're not talking about sheep here. They didn't have sheep in ancient Egypt. But they called it Ba, and then the person, the body, was called Ka. So when you combine those pieces together in the afterlife, that's what was needed to go to the afterlife to begin with. So preserving the body, ka, and then delivering the soul with it, ba, that created that transfer. It is extremely confusing, but again, we're taking 3 days to cover this. Did everyone get embalmed or mummified? Absolutely not. It was just the nobles and the pharaohs. So pharaohs, of course, they were the most important, so they were put in more important spots. Surprisingly as well, adults were not the only one to be mummified. The only ones to be mummified. The rich, if they had children who had passed away, those children would be mummified and preserved and put in the same tomb. Slaves to the nobles would also be placed in the tomb and mummified because they worked for the noble. Also, surprisingly, animals. Animals were also mummified depending on the circumstance. So there have been records of the smallest things like mice even being mummified to 18 feet crocodile. How do you mummify a crocodile? That's my question. I think it's cool, but the most popular mummified animal was obviously a cat because they were considered sacred in ancient Egypt. And it was, many historians think that every household had at least one cat because they were that sacred. Again, we don't have a ton of information, but we have seen in archaeological sites cat skeletons, multiple cat skeletons, which obviously tells us, okay, there were cats here. And they weren't, some of them weren't preserved. And some of them were mummified and even had their own little sarcophagi, like their little tomb. But, yeah. So the skeletons were probably from the poorer folks of, like, the skeletons of the cats. Those were probably owned by poorer people because they did not get mummified. So keep that in mind. And then obviously famous mummies, Tutankhamun, Ramses the Great or Ramses the Second. Ramses the Second's grandparents even. And we do know that by trying to extract DNA and kind of trying to match it up. The biggest thing that we have with with preserving the bodies, if done in a magnificent fashion, we could still today extract some form of DNA to the point where we can identify who it was or what that person did. Guys, technology has gone a long way with ancient Egypt. So, yes, make sure that you guys are doing, if you didn't finish anything from yesterday, you need to finish that first. This is the sheet you're doing. It has the little Anubis jar over here. This is today. This is April 1st work. April 2nd, tomorrow's, is this one. The one with the sarcophagus on the side, and you gotta place them in order. If you're doing the hard copy sheet, then, and you don't want to cut them out and place them in order, then just put 1, 2, 3, just put them in order. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the process was. Okay, so if you have any questions, just email me. Parents can still dojo me. I'm still not getting any notifications from parents as far as communicating for this week. So I am extremely worried that something's going on. You guys need to reach out to me. My homeroom class, reach out to me and tell me you guys are doing okay. All right? Because I've been trying to dojo parents like crazy. and nobody's answering me. So just keep that in mind. All right, so make sure you're watching out for tomorrow's videos. Hopefully everything will be fixed, but no promises. Just be patient, okay? Thanks.